What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's daily market recap. In today's episode, I'm going to break down all of the trades from this morning. I traded 5 different stocks today. I'm green on all 5, but 3 of the trades were small winners. One of them was basically a break-even trade. So, of the 5 stocks I traded, there are really only 2 of them that gave me some really nice profits. So, how was I able to keep myself from going deep red on these other ones that didn't work out very well? Well, one of the approaches that I adopted about a year ago is to try to scale into the day and to scale into each trade. So what that means is that when I first see a stock hit my scanners, it pops up, hits my scanners, and let's say it meets all 5 pillars of stock selection based on price, relative volume, percentage change, news, and float. As long as I like it meeting all 5 criteria and has a good candlestick chart, I'll take a trade. Now, in my first position, I usually take a starter, and if the trade starts to work in my favor immediately, what do? I add to that position. I'm scaling in. So then as it goes up, I'm adding, but as it keeps going higher, I'm making more money because I have a bigger position. However, if I get in and it immediately pops up and drops right down or immediately starts selling off, I never scale in. I don't go to full size. So when I take a loss in those situations on a stock that I just started trading, the losses are typically smaller. And a lot of times, if the stock does have fresh breaking news, there's enough volume that I can get in and get out, potentially even break even, which is fantastic. So for me, one of the things that you have to understand is that we never know how much a stock is going to go up. Of the 5 stocks I traded today, each of them, in the moment that I traded them, I thought they had the potential to make a really big move. Now, 2 of them did, but the other 3 didn't. So what I can control is how much I'm willing to risk on these trades and on my first positions that I take. So if I start with a 5,000 or even 7,500 share position and I'm willing to risk 10 cents a share, I'm risking $500 to $750. If it goes up 15, 20 cents, just like that, I'm up, $500 to $1,000. So it's like I'm starting to pick up profit without taking a lot of risk. So the name of the game is controlling your downside risk, because that's what you have control over. We don't know how much something's going to go up, but you can control how long you'll hold it if it goes down. So control your downside risk. And then if you get something that starts to squeeze, that's where I'm stepping up to the plate. Now today, I actually had my biggest loss of the entire month. So how did that happen? Well, I was in the green. I was doing really well on the day. In fact, I was up $50,000 on the morning, and I sized up with one of my biggest positions of the day for a squeeze through a new high, and it rejected pretty violently. And I lost about $14,000 on one trade. I went from $50,000 on the day to $36,000. That's a big haircut. And so it's not that I can't take big losses from time to time, but even in that context, the glass was still half full because I'd already had such a good day. So that's the best time to take a big loss. The worst time to take a big loss like that would be on your first trade of the day. But that's what happens to a lot of rookie traders. They size up too soon, too early, biggest position on that first trade, it goes wrong, and now they're deep in the red. Now they're trading sort of, on the defense, trying to recover, and that's when you start to scramble, revenge trade, get emotionally hijacked, and you can start to spiral. All right, so let's jump on a screen share and start breaking it down. Hey, by the way, our Memorial Day sales have begun here at Warrior Trading. The sale is on the Warrior Starter and the Warrior Pro memberships, so make sure you guys check these out. We have special bundles that we put together. The Warrior Pro special bundle right here includes access to Day Trade Dash, which is the software that you'll see here that I'm using every single day. So with access to this software, you'll be able to load it on your own machine. You'll have the charts, the scans, the news feed, my chat room, everything else. You get the announcements just like that right there. And then over here, you'll also get access to a trading simulator, because as always, I want to remind you, trading is risky, and I want to encourage you to practice these new strategies you're learning in a simulator before putting real money on the line. So we're going to give you access to a simulator so you can do exactly that. Now, the Warrior Pro Special bundle here also includes a 7-day money-back guarantee. We are a firm believer that if you are not loving your experience here at Warrior Trading, then by all means, you can step out, right? If it's not a good fit for you. So you have 7 days to really try it out and see if this is the community that you want to learn in, that you want to be part of. All right. So with that said, make sure you guys check out the Memorial Day specials that are on our website, and let's look at some charts. Okay, so You know that I'm up green on the, well, I guess you probably do from the thumbnail. But let's see. So how does it all break down? Well, let's go back to the very first trade of the day. So we're going to scroll all the way back here to 7 a.m. All right. So I sit down bright and early, 7 a.m. And the first trade that I took was SYTA. All right. So SYTA, this is the stock that was a continuation setup. So it's not fresh news. There in fact wasn't news even on it yesterday. So it's pure continuation. But yesterday, if you look at this stock, it went up quite nicely. I mean, this thing just kept grinding. In fact, I traded it yesterday morning and I lost $400 on it, which at the time was a tolerable loss. You know, I don't love losing, but it was not too much that it got me worked up. So I had a small loss on it, on this candle here. It drops down, but by the end of the day, man, this thing had gone all the way up to $5 a share. In fact, when I first saw it on my scanner this morning, up around 6, I was like, or what, it was around 5. I was like, are you kidding me? Isn't this a stock that was $2 yesterday? But no, it is. It's the same stock. So anyways, it squeezed up to an after hours high right under 6, pulled back, popped up, pulled back, popped up, dipped down, and then right about here, it squeezes through the VWAP, which is that orange trend line right there. And as it broke that level, that's where I jumped in. Where did I buy? 520, starter, 2,500 shares. So it goes up and I add another 2,500 shares as it's pushing higher. So now I'm already feeling like I'm in the driver's seat. So now I go to 5,000 shares. It goes even higher, it goes up to 35, 45 to 50. I add another 5,000 shares. Now I've got 20, let's see. So I did 2,500, 2,500, so that was 5,000. And then I add another 5,000 right there, so that was 10,000 shares. And then I went up to 15,000 shares, it looks like. All right, so 15,000 shares, and it squeezes up right here to a high of $6.34. So a fantastic little pop right there. On that first trade, I ended up making about $12,000. It ends up dipping down, bought the dip, and it squeezes up for another push higher. So I ended up making on SYTA $20,549.26. Initial position, 2,500 shares. Initial risk, about $500. So taking about $500 of risk initially, and then as soon as it was doing what I thought it would do, I'm adding to the position. All right, so increasing my risk, well, increasing my total position, but adding as it's going higher, so I'm also adjusting my mental max loss. So I'm gonna try to get out break even if it turns around on me. So controlling my risk, which was basically right around the VWAP level, got in 525-ish and was adding as it pushed higher, pulls back, gets some profit up there, dips down, and then we get another push higher right here up to 7. Now, SYTA squeezed up to a high of 737, and it was a little tricky towards the end of this move. So we had this initial pop right here, this squeeze through VWAP, which was great, and then it pulls back, it was kind of choppy, dips down, bounces right off the VWAP, and it squeezes very quickly here. Now, I wasn't sure in this area that was going to work. So here's what I did. I said, you know, I just don't know. It had kind of a rejection candle here, higher volume red. In fact, the MACD went negative. But as it squeezed up here, I said, well, what was our previous high? And it was this level here, which was 657. So since it hit 657, I thought, okay, if we can break over 650 and hold that level, I'll jump in. It breaks 650, it holds that level, and I add right there. So I'm adding at 655, 665, 675, and looking for the squeeze up to 7. Hits 7, goes up to about 710. I take some profit off the table. Dips down, and then it comes back up for one more push through 7, and I missed that trade. There was a big seller at 7, and I wasn't sure it was going to work, and then all of a sudden it pops right through 7 and goes right up to 737, and it didn't really give me a chance to get in the way I was able to here. So was up $20,000 on the day, just right at that point. So those were the first stocks, or the first trades that I took. Now, the next trade that I took was CING. CING, not so great. Had breaking news, comes out with, announces results from phase 3 pediatric study, So you've got news that comes out on it, and it pops up, and I see biotech stock with news. I'm going to jump on it. And here's what happened. You can see my P&L. I'm up $232.92. Well, I jumped in as it hit the scanner, and I got in pretty quickly. In fact, I should have waited for a micro pullback, and I didn't. I just jumped in the middle of this move, with a starter of 2,000 shares using my hotkey Shift 2. So I jump in 2,000 shares, I add as it pushes higher, it ends up going up over $1 a share. I'm up $4,000 on it, and then it drops right back down. Gone, profit gone. So I was a little bit bummed out about that. And at that point I thought, okay, you know, that sure seemed like a round trip. Even though it had news, that makes me a little nervous. So the timestamp on this was 8 a.m. That was the top of the hour. So we had this round trip move on CING, and then at the same time we had NRXS pop up. And NRXS pops up and does the same thing. It pops up, it does a round trip and reverses. And I was like, yeah, see, this is not good, guys. I'm not liking this at all. So it pops up, and reverses. So I was like, no, I don't like that. And then it starts to slowly grind back up. So what level was I watching? Well, 480, the previous high. And I ended up getting it NRXS as it started to curl right through here. And we ended up getting this really nice squeeze. So it starts to pop up here. I didn't buy it here. I didn't buy it here. I finally started to get in right around this area when it started to pull away. And, you know, I was able to do pretty well on it. So I took a starter on this of 4,000 shares. Because at this point, I now have a cushion on the day. So I feel like I'm in the driver's seat on the day. So I'm increasing my starter size to 4,000 shares. And immediately I'm like, okay, this thing is moving quickly. I double to 8,000 shares. It's still moving in the right direction. I go to 12,000 and then I go 16,000 and then I go 20,000 shares. So now I'm getting into a bigger position on this. And I'm like, here we go. This is what I wanted to see. I end up going up to 24,000 shares as it pulls away here. And this thing squeezes all the way up to $6.60. This actually, we'll see tomorrow. This might be one of my biggest trades. Well, I don't know, maybe on the month. We'd have to look at my metrics to see what my biggest winner on the month was. Let's see. So this is year to date. So sitting at, well, so today is going to cross over 2 million on the year, which is, it puts me in great shape for my goals. So I'm happy with that. Averaging $35,000 per day this month, 80% accuracy, 3-minute long winners, 1-minute long losers. Cut those losers quick, be ruthless. $5,000 was my biggest loss this month until today. 27,000 was the biggest winner. So yeah, I don't think I actually beat that today, but that's okay. So anyways, I got a nice trade on that. It pulls back right here and then it comes up to 7 right here. And so this is where I ended up getting smoked. Well, you know, so that was not great. This ends up, so let's just back this up for a second. So this is the chart as you can see right now. So at this point, I had a great trade. I got myself between that move there and a couple little dip trades here up $28,000, almost $30,000 just on NRXS. So I was up $50,000 on the day. And then as it squeezed up right here, I added at 675, 685, and 695 for the break of 7. I was like, here we go. We're going to break 7. And the MACD was still open. We had a good volume profile, but we did have some topping tails. I will say that. And what was 7? 7 was an interesting level on the daily chart. 705 was no, actually not 705. I had it at 705. Let's just mark that out correctly. So all-time high was right around 7. It's actually 693. So blue sky set up 693. So blue sky being all-time highs. So that's what I was looking for, the breakup, the break through this level. And then at that point, I'm like, all right, there's no resistance. So are we going to see a squeeze even higher? We've been seeing big moves. So at that point, I was like, I'm in the driver's seat. I'm stepping up big. And I stepped up full size position right there for the squeeze through 7. And it hit $7 and dumps in that red candle to 6. Instantly. I mean, it was just so fast. And so that was a position where it was hard to manage my risk. Well, it was hard to control. It was hard to get out faster because it dropped so quickly. Of course, there's no stop orders pre-market. And so I had to manually exit. And so I manually sold half on the bid and was hoping it might pop up and I could unwind the rest of it for a smaller loss. but it didn't pop up. And then I had to sell again on the bid and sell on the bid. And then I'm just bailing out. So I basically had to just bail out of that position, selling with limit orders, 10-cent offset below the bid, was able to get out, was unwinding the position. I don't usually like to sell like a full, huge position, 30,000 shares or more in one order. So I was breaking it up into smaller orders, getting out, but ended up losing, about $14,000 on that loss. So it went from 50,000 on the day to 36,000. And I had to take a little bit of a deep breath. I was like, all right, that's a haircut. That's the biggest loss I've had in a while. But $36,000 is still a great day. Really don't have any reason to complain. So, So I kind of asked myself two questions. I said, first of all, question number one, and you always got to ask yourself this question: how's my hair? And I was like, listen, regardless of losing $14,000, my hair is great. So, it's the reality check. That's right. It's important. So I'm like, all right, reality check. I'm feeling good. So given that I'm having a great hair day, I'm thinking, all right, well now, is there anything about this that maybe I should learn, apply a lesson, so to speak? And I said, it was kind of popping, dropping. And this suddenly surged up and it kind of came out of nowhere, and I bought the very top. And if you look at the volume on that green candle, it was actually kind of light. So lighter volume after these topping tails indicated other people were not feeling as confident. And I might have been overconfident because I already had so much profit. I think if there's ever a time to be overconfident, it probably is when you're that deep, in the green as I was. So, maybe just a little check there, just to, take a breath when you're up quite a bit, because you can get kind of the same emotional hijack of like, I'm having such a great day, I'm going to start just swinging super hard, and then you get a strikeout. So something to be aware of. I think that the topping tails, though, was definitely the biggest thing that I ignored. I should have been more cognizant of it's having a hard time holding over this level. It keeps rejecting. And I was getting a little frustrated with it. So then I finally jumped in, and that wasn't so great. So then after that bigger loss, which was at, what time was this? 8:26, I was like, all right, 8:26, how much time do I have left in the day, in the morning? Am I going to recover this loss? How much am I willing to give back? And I said to myself, you cannot let yourself go down less than 50% off your high. You're already down about 30% off your high. So 25,000 hard stop. I want to walk away with at least 25 grand today since I was up 50. That would be giving back half. And I really don't want to give back another, $11,000. But that's the line in the sand. So I drew at the line in the sand at that point, the 50% mark. And typically, I don't like to give back more than 20%. But it happened very quickly in one trade. So now I make that decision. Do I walk away right here? Do I say, all right, I'm done. I'm walking away. 36,000. I'm going to step back. Or do I keep trading, knowing I could go further red and get more frustrated, potentially, or, potentially go into the green. And so that is going to be a case-by-case decision based on where you're at. The loss for me was so quick. I didn't have time. all of a sudden, it just happened. So I didn't really dwell on it. I was just like, well, that was a bummer, but, easy come, easy go. I had made $50,000 in just so quickly that losing 16 just it wasn't feeling much of a sting. A little disappointment, a little annoyed, but nothing that I felt like I couldn't overcome by staying focused. So I just said, all right, well, let's see at the bottom of the hour if there's another stock with news. If we get another biotech stock with news, maybe that'll kind of get me back in the right direction. So anyways, we didn't get anything at the bottom of the hour. But NRXS sells off here and ends up kind of finding some support down here. And so I ended up doing a couple of dip trades off of this level. Smaller positions, but got some dip trades down here. And I got a dip trade down here. And this dip trade worked out pretty nicely because it corresponded with the MACD curling, a nice little crossover. So a couple little dip trades on it, and I was able to make back some of the loss, which was good. And then we had a couple other stocks that popped up on the scanner. So SPCB popped up on the scanner for a quick second. That had news, jumped on it. I made 1,700, but it didn't hold. So basically jumped on it quickly as the spread started to get tighter, took a little profit, and then it rejects. So I was like, that's not great. HOLO, HOLO, same thing, jumped on that as news came out, was a little hesitant, but kept quick base hits, jumped in, jumped out, didn't overstay my welcome, made 3,600 on that. And at that point I was like, all right, these are popping up, but they're reversing round trip. So let's just stay focused on NRXS. So I stayed focused on NRXS and got a couple more trades on it, which I guess this was actually my last trade of the day. Yeah, it was at 9:07. So yeah, that ended up being the last trade of the day. And so that is the one that put me back up over 50,000 on the day. And at that point I was like, well, that's good. Do I walk away? And I was like, well, let's just see. If NRXS can break through, it pulled back, but I was like, if it can break through this level, we're still looking at 7. So who knows, maybe we'll get a squeeze at the open, but that didn't end up happening. SYTA did pop up a little bit at the open. I didn't trade it, wasn't too sure about it. EDBL, this one popped up during the day. I didn't trade this one either. This one has a history of being a bit choppy. Popped and dropped just recently, but has done it many times over the years. So I kind of was like, nah, I don't think this one's going to work. It did end up working, I suppose more than I thought it would, but I didn't trade that one. TNMG, 30 million shares of volume. Definitely some momentum on it, lower priced. I left that alone. EYEN earlier this morning, also lower priced, left that alone. So there are a number of stocks that I passed on just because the price didn't feel like it was right. And then the S&P 500, just big picture overall, market is still hanging out right in this area, just under 600 on the S&P. So, we're just kind of at this point holding steady. I mean, it's not surprising that I'm having a really good month here in May. The overall market has been strong. That gives us a tailwind. And small caps are strong. Bitcoin is strong. So, we're just seeing these asset classes and these different markets moving higher. And this is a time where I'm going to just try to make as much as I can, because I know ultimately the ebb and flow of the market is that we're in a hot cycle, but there's a cold cycle coming. And so when it cools off, I've got to make sure that I feel like I did well enough when it was hot that I can take my foot off the gas. I mean, I have to take my foot off the gas when it slows down. And so the more I make in the hot market, the easier it is to feel okay taking your foot off the gas when it cools off. So that's my game plan. Again, those of you guys tuning in, if you get value out of these recaps, I hope you hit the thumbs up. I hope you subscribe to the channel. And if you want to check out our Memorial Day sales here at Warrior Trading, by all means, I'm going to put a link for a couple long form episodes that I've recently uploaded that I think you'll enjoy. And let me remind you, as always, that trading is risky. My results are not typical, so please manage your risk and always practice in a simulator before putting real money on the line.